I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to introduce you to the mission of the Central Coast Taxpayers Association. We're in a fight for the forgotten taxpayers of this county. Our issues of concern are protect Proposition 13, which is constantly under attack, to oppose constant taxation at the state and local level. And just recently, we were present at the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday to oppose the 26% salary increase for themselves. We made public comment, and we're sorry to say that with the new change of the majority on that board, they voted to increase their own salary by 26%. Federal, the state, and local areas to tax you every mile that you drive. And I guess they'll put a little something on your car to track you, and that to me is the worst part. They will be tracking me. So San Diego was looking to tax maybe 6 cents a mile. Now think about it. Your gas that you're paying at the pump, and then if they're going to tax you for every mile, especially in a semi-rural area that we live in, what that's going to cost. So be aware of that. So we're going to be awarding today the Hero of the Taxpayer Award, and I'm going to ask Chuck Bell, our Board of Director, to come up and present that award to our dear friend Kenney Enney.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm really pleased to be able to make this award to Kenney Enney, who's become a very good friend of mine over the course of time, and it's wonderful to see a guy like Kenney, who has such incredible integrity and straightforwardness, who's willing to take on the bad guys and in a very honest and direct fashion speak to them and speak to the public on issues. And I like to think of it this way: if he stood up to him in Fallujah, darn it, he's going to stand up to him at the Paso Robles. First heard of Kenney when he became involved with a statewide school choice petition measure, and he gave his heart to that and the regional work for attempting to qualify a state school choice measure, which actually may be the best solution for many of these problems, because it would take the money from the bureaucrats and the school districts, give it to the parents under a certain control for the use of their children to go to school where they choose to send them. And the market discipline of having that kind of a system would be a major corrective for our educational system. So it's going to come back as people become more and more disaffected with the process of government, and I expect Kenney's going to be at the first rank of that effort when that should happen. But many of you know Kenney very well. He's a rancher here. He has his ranch out in the hills above Estrella. It's a lovely site. He runs cattle on it. He grows barley, which he sells for a very interesting beer and other brewing and that sort of thing. And bread is really good from that. And he took the initiative upon some requests here to serve on this school district. And of course, when he got there, he had some serious questions about what was going on. For example, why did he get financial information in a big 250-page thing without any really explanatory information about it, and it was on the consent agenda for that board to, quote, consider and adopt. And consent agendas, as you know, are ones where there's no discussion unless someone pulls them from the agenda, and then they better be prepared to talk about that. In any event, this school district has had some problems in the past with financial irregularities. The grand jury of this county called them on it, and it led to a big shake-up there. But we found that the shake-up doesn't last too long unless there are concerned members of the public who are willing to serve on those boards and hold them to account. So he was appointed to this board, and the opponents immediately filed a petition, which, as an election lawyer, I learned that it's very easy to qualify. You know, it's compared to the number of signatures required to qualify a state or local initiative petition or a recall or something of that sort. With 5% of the registered voters of the district, you can qualify a petition for holding an election. So what happened was that they were able to get that, led to an election, and at the cost of what we don't really know the final numbers, but the estimated cost was $500,000 for that election, which I think itself is an outrage to taxpayers. And it shows that political power is in the hands of administrators and bureaucrats and people who are allied with them. It can be a pretty dangerous thing. No attention to the cost to the taxpayer of an episode like that. There are other processes, regular elections, at which if you have a beef with the direction of a board or a particular member, you can hold the election and not go through this. Anyway, this procedure required a special election. I think the thing that was important, and out of this, Kenney really developed a solid program that looked to not only the cost that was being incurred for the election and for the administrative overhead of the body itself, but also the lack of results in terms of student achievement scores, which are rather low is to understate it. And certainly in comparison to a school district, Clovis in the Valley, which has very comparable demographics to that of Paso Robles, it's abysmally low. So there is a point to be made about children not getting the education to which they're entitled, parents not having a say in what the educational curriculum and teaching and so forth of their children was all about, and so all of those things he advocated for. This organization did not endorse, but we felt that he had an exceptional record of support for the interests of taxpayers and of parents, and ultimately of the children that our taxes are used to pay for education, which needs to be much better, not only in this district, in this county, but this state and this nation. So it's really an honor for us to have decided to award the Hero of the Taxpayer to Kenney, and I'd like to present that award if I can. Okay.
Appreciate it.
I've never been interested in politics to run, and I've talked to lots of people over the last 6 months or so, and I said I kind of had my Jonah moment, and my Jonah moment. Everybody knows the story of Jonah and the whale, and he kept trying to run, saying, just leave me alone. I don't want to do this. And I kind of had my Jonah moment when my godson died of an overdose. And you see those train wrecks coming, and you sit and you watch them. And you don't want to upset anybody. You want to go along. And still in the back of my mind, I remember telling his parents, "You're failing your son." And that's what we're doing as a community now. We're failing our children. We all know that it's a train wreck. Kurt DeBose knows it's a train wreck. All those members on that school board, they know it's a train wreck, but nobody wants to say, put the brakes on. And that's what we have to do as a community right now. We have to tell them to put the brakes on. You know, I think there's nothing more immoral than sending somebody out into a fight, telling them that they're ready for that fight when they're not. You're setting them up for failure. You've seen it. Anybody that's in the military, anybody that's in law enforcement, anybody that's in a first responder knows that you train somebody for the mission that they have to accomplish. And that's the purpose of public education. You know, the founding fathers wanted public education to do three things. We were failing at all three. You know, you wanted a skilled labor force educated in the disciplines of reading, writing, and arithmetic to create a common citizenry. We're not doing any of those in Paso. And we're going to reap the whirlwind if we do not stop this soon. And we have to start focusing on uniting. You know, that's the inclusivity flag right there. We don't need any other flags. I don't care who you believe in, who you like, but until we start telling everybody that this is your flag, you don't get your separate flag in your classroom. This is your flag too. We're going to continue to peel away layers from our country. And you know, before most of us leave this earth, I think we're at risk of seeing, you know, a level of Armageddon that we have not seen in this country for 175 years. So I want to thank a couple people here. I really thank all of you. Lauren, Dorian, where's Dorian? And then Frank Triggs, Chris Bosch, anybody that stepped up, Jennifer Greninger, where's my nemesis, Rebecca? Oh, there you are. She thought she could get kicked off the board faster than I did. But anybody that steps up, you know, to include, you know, John Pashong and Debbie Arnold and really anybody on whatever side of the political aisle you find yourself, you step up and you think in your heart of hearts that you're doing the right thing. What I've always tried to tell people, and I learned this lesson working at the Pentagon, is the politicians come and go, but you have that layer of bureaucracy that's always going to be there. And I learned that when I came back from Iraq, and I got assigned to be in charge of intelligence, manpower, and training for the Marine Corps. And I had this bureaucrat that worked for me that he'd been there for 40 years. And in his mind, he ran the office, even though I was the colonel. You know, I would tell him, this is what I want done. And he'd say I wouldn't do it. And they would sit on the paperwork, or they'd block the paperwork. Well, finally, it came to a head, and I went to the general, and I was the one that got in trouble for yelling at him. And I won. I mean, eventually, you know, my orders were put into effect. But the bureaucrat came to me, and he said, you know, you officers come and go, but I'm still going to be here. And as soon as you're gone, I'm going to change it back. And that's what we have to remember when we look at a bureaucracy. Whether you're an elected official, whether you're a sworn officer, we come and go. But that layer of bureaucracy is always going to be there. And that layer of bureaucracy exists for one thing, in my opinion, to perpetuate the bureaucracy. So I worked for Mattis in Fallujah. He's an interesting guy. Somewhat of a personality cult, but there were two quotes from Mattis that I always walked away with, or really took with me. Actually, I'll do three. My favorite was, if everybody thinks the same way, then somebody's not thinking. That was my favorite Mattis quote. My second favorite Mattis quote was, be polite, be professional, but always have a plan to kill them. And then his third quote that I always liked was, if there is a bureaucrat and Osama bin Laden standing next to each other and I only have one bullet left, which one should I kill? So those are kind of my philosophies going into the school board. It will be interesting, but this is really just the beginning of the fight. I'm on the board now, and Lauren and Dorian and I are a minority, but we will not be ignored. We will hold them accountable, and we'll keep the pressure on. But ultimately, we have to have the people telling us what's happening in the schools. You know, the kids are our next our next generation. That's our most precious resource, and we have to remember that. So you have my word of honor. I will make every meeting very interesting. And I appreciate your trust and your support, and God bless you.
School district, I think I'm joint. So with that, let me call on our board of director, Terry Strickland, to talk a little more about that.
All right, here's our award. We kind of stole this idea from the Sacramento Taxpayers Association, but we thought it was fun, but a serious conversation about wasting our tax dollars. So the Golden Fleece Award